CBC, of course, from Canada, they have a problem. They're not using Twitter right now. And Justin Trudeau himself, link in the description, you can watch this. There's a video clip. It's almost 2 minutes of Justin Trudeau responding to this. This is great. It's better than PBS. It's better than the BBC bit. Of course, Elon Musk joking about big black cock as well on that one. It's better than NPR. This is the CBC. It is mostly funded by the Canadian government. 69% of their funding supposedly coming from the Canadian government. Now, originally, the other day, they were simply labeled by Twitter, because it's true. It's not a lie. It's the reality. They were labeled as state-affiliated media. This has happened before. Again, PBS is taking a break. NPR is taking a break. CBS for a while took a break on unrelated reasons. They've decided to take a break from Twitter for being labeled state-affiliated, government-funded, even though that's true. And it's very, very funny that Western media outlets have a really big problem with simply being labeled. You're not being demoted like content creators like myself are on multiple platforms. You're not being banned. You're not being punished. The site is simply letting people that interact with your content know that you are partially government funded. Well, they threw a bitch fit. Unlike Sputnik and RT and similar Eastern Bloc groups, Xinhua, for example, that have never said anything about it. They own it like a badge of pride. Xinhua is proud to tell you that the Chinese government funds them. You know, they can't really hide from it. RT is proud to tell you about the fact that the Kremlin is the main source of their power. They are state mouthpieces. So is CBC. It does not matter if your journalism is independent. If you're taking that funding, the two things happen. Number one, the funding is being labeled. Nobody is challenging journalistic independence. Well, except for me, and that's point number two. If you're getting money from a government entity, from the taxpayers, you are naturally going to be reluctant to go up against the reigning party or groups that happen to be in power. You're going to be reluctant. You're going to softball them naturally out of self-preservation. Anyone would do this. The people that work at CBC have jobs. They can be fired, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, they're going to be doing that. Trudeau is unhappy, and it's inexplicable. I thought that you stood for the Western concept of openness and transparency. People should have a right to know. So anyway, Twitter did respond to the CBC after they initially labeled them state-affiliated media, which they are. CBC had a problem with that. So Twitter decided to address the problem. The way they address the problem is putting a label, and it is real. You can go to CBC's page, at CBC, of course, on Twitter right now and see it for yourself. This is the label that is currently on the Canadian media network there. 69% government-funded media. The trolling is so sheer. The own of the legacy media here is that they should have done this for fucking NPR and PBS and stuff like that. They should put a ratio up on them with regards to how much funding they get from either the government directly or indirectly, like BBC. Its funding mainly comes from TV licenses. Well, the TV license, if you have a TV, is involuntary. It's effectively a tax, and people have pointed this out. They should definitely get that. So 31% of their funding doesn't come from the Canadian government. A supermajority of your funding coming from a government source makes you state affiliated. It doesn't matter how independent you supposedly are, and you're not at the end of the day. You're reliant upon that taxpayer money to be robbed from the people of Canada by the government and then given to you to pay the salaries, to keep the lights on, to keep the microphones working, et cetera, et cetera. They have a big fucking problem. Anyway, 69. It's very mimetic as well. There's certainly no reach arounds going on in their offices. By the way, they will quickly realize that their reach is massively reduced by not operating on Twitter, much like CBS did, again, months ago. PBS, NPR, all the others, they'll realize that. Although, if it's state-funded media, because they're guaranteed their pay, do they care? No, they don't care if they only have one viewer. They don't care if they only have one listener. As long as they make their money, they're perfectly okay. They will probably be pressured by the Canadian government at some point to continue operating on Twitter, though, thus showing, ironically enough, their journalistic integrity does not actually exist. I'm loving it. I am McLoving this more than almost anything that I've seen so far this year. This is great.